Good morning, and thank you for staying with us for this special broadcast here on Citizen Television. And we'll be discussing an important day forthcoming on the 16th of June in less than 3 days' time, and to celebrate the International Day of the African Child. With me in the studio is Teresa Otieno. She is the director, the Kenya Big Dream Program, World Vision Kenya. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time, much appreciated. Alex Macharia is the Child Protection, Participation and Safeguarding Technical Program Manager, World Vision Kenya. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you here on the broadcast. And thank you. Trufena Chaminingwa is the Deputy Director for Children's Services at the National Council for Children's Services. Your time is all appreciated. Thank you as well for your time. What a time to discuss this. And first, to begin with, coming to you first, Teresa, in terms of the theme around this year's celebration of the African child, first, there is one common question that comes up when having such a discussion. Who, to be specific, is the African child?
Okay, thank you so much. An African child is a child born in Africa, registered in Africa, and having a birth certificate that reflects that she or he has been born in Africa. Yeah.
Okay. And the theme around, coming to you, Alex Macharia, this year's marking of the day is around education. How key is education for the African child in the context of given the challenges that we often witness across the continent in terms of access to education, for example, and affordability, and the theme around it and the choreography? Therefore, talk to us education and the African child in that context.
Thank you so much, Ayub. And that's a good question, because the theme for this year, for the Day of the African Children, is education for all children in Africa. And actually it says the time is now. And why education? We all know that education gives us the skills and the abilities for tomorrow in the future. And Africa is, as a continent, we have not yet reached there. When we look at the Sustainable Development Goal framework on education for children in Africa, it actually states that countries in Africa should invest at least 20% of their national budgets towards education. And unfortunately, statistics has it that 9 out of 49 countries in Africa only are able to reach that target. I'm happy because when the CS of Finance yesterday read the budget, education was given approximately 28% of our budget.
Which is the highest?
Which is the highest, yes, and it's around 139.1 billion Kenya shillings. But the question is, Ayub, that money, where is it going? Is it going really to affect the life of the child on basic education? So it is important for us as African nations to ask ourselves, even as we allocate resources, those resources, are they touching the real life of the child? Because if you look at actually that budget statistically, what goes to other overhead costs, like the TSC and other overhead related expenditure, is more than what goes to improve the basic education of the children. Thank you.
Okay. Trufena, given that we are, the importance of education is enshrined and embodies this year's theme, why celebrate? Why is 16th of June important in our calendar in that regard, to dedicate this day for the African child?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. The reason why we celebrate the Day of the African Child every year is because we want to commemorate the children who were brutalized in South Africa in 1976, who were protesting against apartheid that was giving them substandard education. So the OAU that time set aside this date for the African children to celebrate, and for the states, the country states, to take stock of the achievements or the structures they are putting in place, the legal framework and all that, to progressively help the children realize their rights. So every year we celebrate so that we take stock of how far we are ensuring that children the children attain their rights.
Okay. Teresa, this now brings us to where you work, which is World Vision, and your role therein. Alex mentioned the SDGs in terms of the achievables that have been set and meant for attainment. But how critical is World Vision in this whole process of the African child, not only, of course, confining this to this year's theme, but going forward, the general welfare of the African child? Okay,
World Vision is key in this process, because as World Vision, we look at the safety and protection of children. And one of the things that we are looking at is ensuring that every child, regardless of where they're coming from, have access to education. And so through World Vision, we have a program, Kenya Big Dream program, that is aiming at addressing child marriage issues, teenage pregnancy issues, and FGM. And you know very well that these issues normally keep children away from school. And so through the program, we have been able to have a lot of interventions, including working very closely with the Ministry of Education, Children's Department. But within the Ministry of Education, we have been able to support the government in developing various policies, including mentorship policy, guidance and counseling policy, and currently we are supporting the development of the education and training gender policy, so that we are able really to see and ensure that these issues are addressed within the communities that we are working with. But apart from that, we have direct interventions within the communities, especially in arid and semi-arid areas, whereby World Vision, in partnership with the World Vision US, has been able to construct schools. And we all know how important schools are, access to education is. And so for us, construction of school is so key, because we have known how children move from one place to another to be able to access education, especially example like Samburu County. And so by us constructing school is just to ensure that these children are able to access education and remain in school. But apart from that, we also provide school fee subsidies for the vulnerable population within the community, so that they can be able to access education. And also for those children who are not able to get into school early, we bring them in and register them into accelerated learning, so that these children can be able to go through accelerated learning that lasts between 1 to 6 months, so that they can be able to be registered fully within the learning institution. And so those are some of the interventions that we do within the program.
Alex, what then happens beyond the walls of the classroom? And here, talk to us about your engagements and in what degree or levels with the communities, because the child comes from a family, which is a unit that informs the larger society or the community. Therefore, in terms of sensitization and awareness, how are you working with the respective communities across the continent?
Thank you, Ayub. Statistics has it, a report that was produced by UNICEF showed that we have good enrollment rates. Like Kenya, 93% of children enroll to school. But the retention and transition is wanting. Yeah. For example, you see like our transition from primary school to what we call secondary school is at 53%. Unfortunately, the transition is at boys is at 63, girls at 68. As World Vision, we are interested to make sure that the child goes through the phases of education sustainably and is able to complete that. And for example, in our last financial year, we invested over $19 million to see to it that we keep children in school. My colleague Teresa, she has mentioned some of the issues that are keeping children out of school. Yeah. And one of the major issues I want to mention here is the issue of the school feeding program. And you realize that children in most of these marginalized counties and also in the slums, in these poor population areas, are kept in school because there is food. A hungry child cannot concentrate in school. So one of the investment we're having as an organization, not only in Kenya but across Africa, is what we are calling a campaign we have started called the Enough Campaign. We are saying we have had it enough of children not having food and good quality and nutritious food. And in Kenya, we launched that campaign. It was actually officially launched by Her Excellency, the First Lady, in April. And we want to invest in making sure that our children get food. How are we doing this? We have direct investment and also influence of policy.
Yes.
We are talking to government, yes. We are talking to the relevant stakeholders to see to how together we can join hands and make sure that we have food in our schools. Ayub, let me also mention something else that is very important, and this is especially for the girls. We have what we call the menstrual poverty.
Yeah.
And how are we able to sustain our girls in school, especially when they are going through their phases of normal life? We have had situations where girls are being exploited and abused because they lack basic items like the sanitary towels. And this is why we are seeing a rise in issues of child pregnancy, child marriage, because these girls cannot stay in school. They are even becoming actually ashamed. When that time comes, they drop out of school. People take advantage of them. So what is the government doing? What are we doing as partners working with government, yes. to make sure that we avail these services to our girls?
Yeah.
So
and services to the extent, Alex, because that services in that context revolves around the provision of sanitary,
yes.
Towels and pads. But beyond that, then how do you address the other challenge, which is even more enormous? That is the mindset, changing the perceptions about this natural biological process which happens to every girl, and then sensitize the community in not ostracizing these young girls simply because of a natural process that they undergo, because that is equally important beyond the provision that stakeholders like you and the government can provide for young girls.
Yes, Ayuba, we are actually investing in the improving the skills, quality parenting skills for caregivers. Remember, the children, their first care is at home. Their nurture is at home. And we have invested. We actually, I don't know whether Kenyans know, we have what we call the National Parenting Program that was launched together with the Directorate of Social Development. We have a parenting program where now, like World Vision, we have been able to reach over 88,000 parents and caregivers from where we work and train them on the parenting skills. Parents are part of the community, and we are helping them to understand the rights of their children. We help them to understand how to take good care of their children. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Trufena, coming to you, significant strides have been made in terms of access to education. But still, when you look at the access to education in itself, there are challenges which are very significant. Tell us then, what are the hindrances and the obstacles that are making all children in Kenya, for instance, in our context, not access education?
Yeah, as you have rightly said, the government has made a lot of progress to ensure that children access education. But still, we still have challenges. Some children come from communities which are still practicing harmful cultural practices like beading, child marriage, FGM, and some communities in Kenya still believe that maybe the girl child should not get an education. So as much as we are creating awareness, the change is slow because culture takes time to change. And then another issue that we can pick is the issue of insecurity. Some parts of Kenya, there's still cattle rustling, insecurity, and this leads to children and families getting displaced, schools destroyed, children now fearing to go to school and therefore dropping out of school. And even worse of all is some children are recruited into to be part of the raiders. Yeah. So this one means that these children will not continue with education. So poverty is also another issue. The government is doing a lot, and one of the programs is the cash transfer for families who are vulnerable. But the cash transfer has not reached all vulnerable families. So it means that these children from vulnerable families, most of them are not able to complete education. Because as much as the government has put structures in infrastructure in place and all this, the child still needs a lot other support to be able to be retained in school. Yeah.
Teresa, given her two components of the culture aspect, the belief that exists in many cultures across the continent of education and the deeply held notion that it doesn't solve human problems according to them, which is different in many ways. But in terms of the insecurities she has mentioned, and it differs because, for example, she mentioned cattle rustling, which is a problem largely domiciled in the counties, largely in the North Rift. If you then speak about the northern frontier counties, for instance, Wajir, Garissa and Mandera, it's a whole new challenge, which is terrorism, insecurity in that context. Then you have this mass exodus of teachers from the region because of fears of their life. How is World Vision chipping in here in helping such a momentous challenge which is facing education and the access we talked about that all children need to go to school and get education and get empowered, and in turn the ripple effect of empowering the entire community?
Okay, thank you, Ayub, for that question. Yes, in regard to insecurity in these areas, World Vision is so key in terms of ensuring that we have community conversation, because these conflicts most of the time is caused within the community based on various tribes that are within the community. And so we use a strategy whereby we are bringing community together so that we can be able to have a conversation and be able to reach a mutual agreement. But apart from that, we are working with the county government to support in these processes so that the children are able to continue with their education without really getting interference based on the insecurities that is happening within the counties. One component that we have been able to integrate within our programs is also to ensure that we bring in the issues, the effects of insecurity among the learners, whereby we are training them, sensitizing them on the effects, so that even as they are growing up and transiting from one level of education to another, they are able to grow up to be responsible citizens who know that insecurity really brings underdevelopment of the counties. Because you realize that when there is insecurity, then things, buildings are being brought down, houses are being brought down, schools are being brought down. And so through sensitization of parents, sensitization of learners, so that they grow up to be responsible citizens, then we are aiming at ensuring that in future, they will not be having insecurity issues.
Yeah. Alex, of course, I'm not limiting this conversation to the Kenyan setup, but different communities, even here, given our mosaic and our ethnic makeup, we have our own sets of different beliefs and traditions and norms that govern every community. Does this then stretch you as an organization in terms of reaching out and tailor-making different solutions for these different challenges from different communities? And is that also another challenge that also supplements what you have earlier on mentioned of FGM, which is a common factor in terms of being a challenge, but your response to these different challenges, how do you respond?
Thank you, Ayub. As you have correctly stated, culture is very key. Social structures are very key to actually determine how the communities and even the children themselves as beneficiaries respond to education. And one thing we are doing as an organization, we are working with all the structures in the community. Maybe a very key structure we're working is the faith leaders. Remember, faith leaders are actually key gatekeepers in our communities. Generally as a country, in Africa actually, even as Africans, we have a lot of belief systems built around our beliefs and our faith in God, and also even the traditional leaders. We are working with them. So we have programs where we are engaging the faith leaders, the traditional leaders, and discussing with them about issues that affect the well-being of our children. And one of these issues is education. And we have been sensitizing them. We have been using the platforms they give us to talk about the benefits of taking our children to school. But of importance also, I need to mention, is the place of the child themselves, the children themselves. They're the beneficiaries. And as an organization, for example, in our last year, we were able to support over 311,000 children to participate in forums where they are talking about their well-being and issues affecting them. I remember in one forum where children were talking to the leaders, we gave them that platform to meet with the leaders, including government and county leadership and even societal leadership. And they mentioned, for example, issues of infrastructure. I'll give a statistical example. Like in Turkana, the ratio of pupil-teacher ratio is 1 teacher to 77 children Ayub in one classroom. How effective is teaching happening in that class? Very minimal teaching effectively happening there. So we provide those platforms so that children are able to air their views, they're able to talk about issues affecting them. And as I mentioned, some of the issues that students were talking about is issues of school feeding, issues of infrastructure. Do they even have the right sanitary infrastructure? Issues like simple like toilets for health facilities. So we are working together with the parents also in the community so that they're able also to contribute towards improving the educational status of their children.
And I'm sure you have engagements with the government, because when you mention the shortage of teachers, that is a challenge. Do you bring up these conversations with the state, for example? And yesterday there were allocations were made to different sectors. The education, the Ministry of Education, about 640, they're about billion Kenya shillings. 54, they're about billion Kenya shillings. And the Teacher Service Commission, which is the employer of the teachers, more than half of that money, 300 billion plus. Do you also encourage them to do more in terms of staffing and addressing that staffing challenge that you have highlighted?
Yeah, this is a discussion we have, Ayub, and the government, being that we support the work the government does. We do have those discussions,
yes,
including supporting the country to have laws that are actually there. For example, the Children's Act of 2022, if you look at Part 2, Section 13, it talks about the basic education. And actually it says that all children have a right to free and compulsory basic education that is of quality. And I think that now comes to what we are talking about, the infrastructure, the issues of teaching, the issue of even the health, well-being of children in school. So government, as an organization, we engage with government. They are our partner. We actually partners to government because this is government responsibility to give education to the children of Kenya. And we are talking in different forums with government, and this is work in progress, Ayub. We continued having those discussions. As I mentioned, for the first time, we can see a bit high budget allocation towards education. This is not as it was before. So I believe government also is putting more effort and more investment in improving education in our country.
And Trufena, what are some of these strategies from the government's perspective that you're rolling out in ensuring that all children access education?
Yeah, as Alex has rightly put it, we have the Children Act 2022 that specifically says that children are entitled or they have a right to that education. So we also have other policies that are put in place to ensure that children access education. One of them I can quickly think about is the issue of teenage pregnancies. There are many children who get pregnant while still maybe in primary school, and they are now allowed, the law now, the policies in the Ministry of Education allow them to go back to school. That means that this child now has a second chance, unlike in the past. And other programs that the government has put in place is like feeding program, and as partners like World Vision also collaborate to support government efforts to provide feeding programs in areas where there are challenges of food. So many of these children also who come from families that have issues. There are families where parents are fighting, neglecting children, and the Directorate of Children's Services is there to provide mediation, reconciliation, and ensure that the rights of the children, especially to education, are met. And sometimes some parents are prosecuted for them to provide support or the parental responsibility to ensure that the children continue with education. So there's a lot that the government is doing, and to promote education for all children. And let me say something about children with disabilities. The government has put in place measures. For example, there's a cash transfer for families with children with severe disability. And also the government has a budget provides budget for devices for children in that category, so that even children who have disabilities are able to access education. The infrastructure may not be perfect, but there's improvement towards that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is that an area, Teresa, you come in terms of helping out with the infrastructure expansion? Because Alex mentioned the aspect of the ratio. Beyond that, it's the accommodation part of it, because you need more classrooms, especially when we are in this current setup of the junior secondary school model of education. And how key has that been in terms of your intervention with the expansion of infrastructure across schools?
Okay, as Kenya Big Dream within World Vision, we have invested much resources in construction of classrooms, including boarding schools. And so basically this we do because we realize that in semi-arid areas, there are no schools. And if there is no school, then it means that children are not able to access education. And for us, this is really a priority area, because we believe that when there is school somewhere, then the community will not have an excuse, or the parents will not have an excuse of not letting their children go to school. And so this is one area that as World Vision we have really invested in, so that we can be able to enhance access to education. But apart from that, we have also invested in ensuring that school environment remains safe for learners, and this we have done by ensuring that we train teachers on issues that affect children, including gender-based violence and sexual abuse, so that if there is an issue at home, then the learners consider school as a safety place. And so this has really gone a long way in ensuring that learners are open to teachers and they are able to share their issues, and teachers are more protective so that these learners don't drop out of school.
Yeah. And Alex, when we talk about the community, the makeup, of course, has different segments to it. There's the youth aspect, the women aspect, and the men folks. Of course, you can have the general conversation around awareness campaigns or, in regards to a challenge that you plan to resolve. Do these different people prompt you to come up with different conversations at their own level? For example, the way you engage the youth is not the way you engage the women, for example. You can't, in some of the cultural setup, talk about some issues, especially to the men folks and to the women folks. Does this prompt you to come up with different templates for them?
Yes, Ayub, as you have correctly put it, the way the society is structured and the norms at society level is different. For example, when you're engaging men, in most communities, they are the custodians of culture, and they are the decision makers at that level. So when we talk with men, we have programs for men engagement. We also have programs for women. We also have programs for youth. We have one program as well, Vision, we call Impact Plus, for the young people, building their life skills and their resilience, and also helping to help them to understand the importance of important issues concerning them, like education being one of them. So yes, we have those structured discussions around the different sets of members of the society. And maybe I want to mention, including as I said before, the cultural leaders. These people are very important, and most of the times these happen to be men, but we are starting to see a change, a shift where women are taking those roles. So yes, we have those discussions at those levels. Yeah.
And has it helped in terms of your assessment and observation?
Oh yes.
In yielding results?
Yes, I can say they have helped because, for example, where we have seen increase in enrollment in schools, especially when you help the men understand why, for example, taking girls to school is as important as taking boys to school. Because sometimes in some communities, the girl is seen as an asset, not worth to be educated, because they'll be transferred in future through marriage. But now we are helping the communities understand that all children are equal and important. So through those discussions, we have seen increase in enrollment of girls in schools. And also even the parents are seeing the importance of investing in their children learning. Of course, we talk about free education, but how free it is another discussion, because you find sometimes parents also have to invest in some components of making their children education is happening in the best way possible. So yes, we have seen that increase, Ayubia.
And Trofena, how is technology very key for you here in terms of all children accessing education and bringing on board those who are out of the classrooms?
Okay, thank you. I'm not really an expert in that area. But
is it important in your course in getting as many children as possible to schools?
Yeah, because I am coming from the community. I know that the government has been connecting electricity to all schools and also internet, and the children are able to access information via internet, which was not there previously. And I also want to believe that the CBC is one way of ensuring that the digital world, we are really grounded in the digital world so that we are not left behind. So, for example, I see my child, if she wants to cook a cake, she goes to the internet and checks and sees how a cake is done. So the government is doing a lot maybe by providing digital devices and encouraging children and young people to have great content and use the digital space.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Teresa, because with the current system of, because it's themed around education of the junior secondary school setup, has it posed a challenge in terms of reaching out to the child here or the children with regards to now the extra needed time for education, the expansion of these classrooms, and where you chip in terms of intervention measures? Earlier you talked about that. But given this being a new system, and now you have a growing number of children who are being admitted or who are enrolling for education in different schools across the country, is this of a challenge?
It's not really a big challenge because you realize that these children were in primary school. Previously, we had from grade 1 to grade 8 set up in a primary school. But with the change, it means that we already have enough space within the primary school. Okay. So with the change, these junior secondary are still hosted within the primary schools, especially in areas where we don't have enough secondary schools. And so this has contributed to continuous learning of these junior secondary school and basically linking it to the financial year 2024-2025 budget. There is an allocation that has been put towards ensuring that we have more schools for the junior secondary. And so I believe that regardless, these children will be able now to transit to the new classrooms that will be built at a later stage. And as at now, I can confirm that there's no challenge in terms of this student being able to go to school and continue with their education because classrooms are there. And so the only thing is that they are not separated. But their classrooms, their teachers, and so education is going on as usual. Yeah.
And Alex, some of your key areas of intervention includes livelihoods and household economic activities strengthening. You have, again, different parts of the country with their own different sets of challenges. What then is your response, for example, in the context of the areas that you target, like phase 1, where we are at the moment, in terms of you rolling out your activities, which includes West Pokot and Baringo counties, of the economic programs that you roll out for the community members and family units, and it comes in what phase? Is it in terms of the cash transfer programs? Is it in terms of involvement in business for them? Is it in terms of empowering them on the commercialization aspect of, because being pastoralist communities largely, the commercialization aspect of what they keep as their source of livelihood, like goats, cows, and camels?
Thank you, Ayub. And maybe before I answer your question, I want to mention something about ICT.
Yes, please.
And ICT is very important. We are living in a generation that is high-tech. And as World Vision is like, we prophetically saw this because we saw like CBC will be coming into place where we need to use a lot of ICT. Approximately 5 years ago, we started a program where we were supporting schools to start what we are calling the ICT hubs. And this was where we could put up a classroom, an ICT hub, a classroom, put their laptops and allow the children to be trained and have teachers there training them. And we did this especially in the far-fetched marginalized counties, the West Pokot, Turkana areas. And we have seen this actually come to be a very, very timely intervention we did, because when CBC came, we have seen that these have been very helpful. In fact, Ayub, one of our ICT hubs was commissioned by His Excellency the President. Then he was the Deputy President, and government borrowed very much from us on this. Now, coming to your question, I know currently, as a country, we have the National Prevention and Response Plan on ending violence against children. And there is a model we call the INSPIRE model. And one of the response approaches to end violence against children is where we strengthen the economic capacities of households and the families. And as World Vision, we are investing in improving the economic of parents. Yeah. And we do this through several programs. We have one we call the Savings for Transformation, where we train the parents about why they need to save. We give them business skills. We train them on coming together in groups and putting their efforts together. SACCOs, yeah. Yes, we do that. And also market linkages. And why are we doing this? We know most of the times children suffer abuse because of poverty. Poverty is one of the contributors to children being abused, including children not going to school. So when we give parents these skills, we also integrate it with training on children's rights. We train them on what children's rights is all about. So, for example, issues of FGM. Yeah. Most people take their children to FGM in this community so that they can marry them off, they can get dowry. Yeah. So if you have the economic strength, you are not going to take your child to FGM, and you're not going to give them out to marriage for dowry. You have the capacity to sustain your children. Yeah. Yes.
And one other area before I come to Rufena, Teresa, coming to you, is on faith and development. And tell us more about that in terms of the heights in which this can reach and what you intend to achieve from it.
Okay, World Vision as a Christian-centered organization, we work in partnership, and one of our key stakeholders is reaching out to faith leaders. We all know that church brings people together, especially when it comes to issues that are affecting the community. And so when the church is able to understand issues affecting children and the community, then they act as leaders in terms of ensuring that the congregation, part of the preaching becomes, part of the preaching also is linked to the issues that are affecting the community. And so for us, we use the Bible a lot towards making reference on why there needs to be peace within the community, and also there is need for us to be able to ensure that children realize their education potential. And so the church leaders has been really a key stakeholders in terms of ensuring we realize results within the community, and them being part of our champions in bringing change. We embrace them, we empower them, and we walk with them the journey towards transforming the community. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Trifana, you have a point to make? Certainly, given why in having this discussion, and also points out beyond education that the time is now, then are all our efforts headed towards the attainment of the SDGs, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals in terms of education and empowerment, given the investments that we are making and given drives and initiatives such as this and the collaboration between you, the government, and stakeholders like World Vision? Are we going to achieve the goals that we have set?
Yes, because when you look at the track record, we are progressing very well. We are impressing partnerships with the other stakeholders, and actually many children issues are addressed in a multi-sectoral way, so that we ensure that all aspects of child rights, of the rights of children, are met. So I want to believe that even with the new act, with the progressive new act, that we are going to achieve, and the children are going to realize their rights, because their rights are human rights, and because all of us are looking at the child and harnessing our efforts, I believe that we shall achieve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coming to you, Alex, because I'm looking at the statistics, and this is largely based on the Kenya Demographic and Health Survey 2022 report. For example, phase one of your project now, West Pokot and Baringo counties 2019 to 2024. This is the final year. Phase 2, Samburu 2021 to 2026. Phase 3, Migori 2022 to 2027. But I'm looking at phase 1 and for example, you look at county like Samburu, 86% of the female population of childbearing between the ages of 15 and 49 years old reported having undergone FGM. The prevalence among the Kuria community in Migori is estimated as high as 96%. This is certainly a mountain of a problem, is it? And how do you then intend to overcome it? As much as there are programs that you keep on rolling out, it seems a different messaging or intensifying that message or amplifying it more is needed in reaching out to these audiences. Yeah.
Ayub, those statistics are alarming. And it's true that children in those communities are really going through a lot of violence, and especially through FGM for the girls. And as an organization, what we are doing, we appreciate and understand that we cannot finish this thing at once. This has been a cultural issue. This is some things that the practices have been there for long in these communities. What we are doing is investing in programs that will contribute towards mind change and attitude change and change in mindset. And also looking at the community stakeholders who are there, who we can work with towards ending FGM and child marriage in these communities. For example, in Samburu, we are working with the Morants. Yeah. And I'm glad to inform that currently we have a program with the Reformed Warriors. These are young people who used to go do the raids you hear about. They are young people who used to go and actually advocate for FGM, but currently they are advocating against FGM. We have taken them to tertiary education and skills education. Some have become good mechanics, other good carpenters, and they are going out there to tell their parents and the community that FGM imepitwa na wakati, or it's past time. And also we are working with parents, as I had mentioned, talking to them about the dangers of FGM. We're also working with community leaders. I want to thank the Anti-FGM Board and the Ministry of Gender and Affirmative Action, because we have really been working together in advocating against FGM in these counties. A place like Migori, you realize some of these practices are actually entrenched in religion, and it is actually tied to religious beliefs, where they say some gods need to be appeased for them to stop doing FGM. And we are taking them to very in-depth discussions and working also with faith leaders and also traditional cultural leaders, custodians of the cultural religion, and discussing with them about dangers of FGM and looking at their beliefs and how that belief is contributing to harming the child and why FGM is not good for now. So Ayuba, as I mentioned before, this is something that will take time. It's not a one-off, it is a process. Remember, the government had a commitment towards ending FGM by 2030. I think we are far from it unless something extraordinary is done. Because even the investment in terms of funding towards programs geared towards ending FGM in these communities is not yet there. Okay. So this is something also that government needs also to improve on, and together we'll be able to end this harm against the children.
And Trufena, looking at these statistics, they are short beyond that, yes. But from the government standpoint, what more can be done? Because it seems there's a plan to eradicate this problem, but it keeps on rising. I mean, it must be, it's either the communication aspect or the messaging needs to be ramped up to reach these people and change this mindset certainly.
Yeah, the government has done a lot. It has put in place laws that prohibit FGM. And actually we cannot say that the problem is increasing, because in many communities it has really gone down, but there are still a few that the numbers have not changed much. So as government, we have children advisory committees, because the Act has provided for them, so that communities come together in their area of jurisdiction and address issues that affect children in that area. So we need to strengthen those committees for children at the sub-county level and even at the ward level, so that they have specific strategies because how this community practices FGM is different from this community, and strategies that would be used to eradicate the FGM in this community should be different. So these communities they are supposed to be empowered so that they help to end this FGM. And it also means that we have to change the way we address the issue of FGM. I think for a long time we have been sending out a uniform, the same message to all those who are practicing. But now it means that we have to modify our way of approaching the whole issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Teresa, still on this, according to that demographic and health survey 2022, there's also the problem of child marriage. An estimated 23% of Kenyan girls are married before their 18th birthday. 4% are married before the age of 15. Among the Pokot communities, West Pokot, Baringo, approximately 64% of the girls get married, and among the Samburu community, 17% of the girls get married. That's according to a UNICEF report in 2017. The prevalence seems to be up. Yes, there's the messaging question and the interventions that the government is rolling out, and the non-governmental agencies such as you. But then how can this be addressed? Because we are losing off the girl child in these communities.
Yeah, as much as we have been able to make efforts towards addressing these issues of child marriage, from the statistic you have just read, yes, it is high, but it's different compared to what we had before. It means that it was even much higher than the 65 that you have mentioned. And so one thing that we really need to do is to enhance our sensitization so that we are not only targeting one community or two communities within a county, but ensuring that more investment is made towards conducting a lot of sensitization and ensuring that those who marry off the girls are put on book. Because if you don't do that, then the community sees it as a normal practice. So the consequence that comes with any person who marries off a girl, then will make the community see the reality that, oh, it's really bad to marry off a girl. So strengthening our system, especially our prosecution system, so that any person who does that then is put on book. But apart from that, enhancing awareness creation through one-on-one awareness creation and through use of media engagement, so that we can be able to reach a lot of people within the community. And one thing that I'll want to say is that it's really disheartening to see a young girl of 12 years old being married by a 78-year-old man, and this man probably could be having other wives. So this already is a danger even to this girl. And most of the time, based on the experiences that you have seen, is that even when this girl is being married off, the girl is crying, or the girl has been abducted, meaning that it is not the will of the girl even to be married off. And so enhancing our awareness creation within the community, ensuring that we are able to implement the policies that already exist, the acts that already exist is very much important, because having an act and not implementing it is like doing nothing. So strengthening our way of ensuring that implementation of policies and acts is important, and also ensuring that the government see these issues as a priority, and so being able to invest more in this area.
Alex, is the system and the structures designed for child protection functional? Because one of the key areas that you also focus on is child protection. Are the systems working?
Yeah, I can say they are working. Trufena, she mentioned one of the systems, what we call the advisory committees at county level. And we also have other formal, like, for example, the police is a structure that is supposed to protect children. And what I'd call for is more adequate funding towards strengthening these systems and structures. We know that the Children's Act of 2022 gave different institutions different mandates towards strengthening protection of children. And if you look at the budget statements of these ministries, you realize that minimal or no funding was given towards accomplishment of those mandates. So it is also upon us as a country to embrace child protection as an important aspect in our planning and budgeting, and we invest in these institutions and structures. But we also have the non-formal structures and institutions at community level. For example, we have the Elders Council. How do we invest in these structures to make sure that they are responding? As World Vision, we invest in training them, giving them the skills they require to be able to do advocacy and sensitization at community level. And I can say they are really embracing this, and they're going out there to speak against violence against children. So yes, Ayub, we can say they are working, but still we have work to do. Funding, especially towards this institution by government, needs to improve. Yeah.
Yes, the final word, please.
Yeah, child protection in Kenya is working, and that is why we have a lot of reporting of cases of child abuse, and action is taken, and the government is also keen on ensuring that it provides the legal framework and policies to guide on how children are supposed to be protected. And one of the things that the government has done is to provide 116, a toll-free line, so that you can report child abuse by calling 116.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Much appreciated for your presence here. I do appreciate your company. Teresa Otieno is a director, the Kenya Big Dream Program, World Vision Kenya. Thank you so much. Alex Macharia is the Child Protection, Participation and Safeguarding Technical Program Manager, World Vision Kenya. Thank you. And Trufena Chemeningwa is the Deputy Director for Children's Services at the National Council for Children's Services. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And looking forward to the day itself. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to you too for watching the broadcast, and which centered around the International Day of the African Child on the 16th of June, the celebration day, which is centered around the theme Education for All Children in Africa. Up next is Semana Citizen with Lulu Hassan. Thanks for watching, and good morning.